Chapter 33 Silence. After that, things were much better between Ben and his parents. His dad even went to the hardware shop with him and bought him some plumbing tools, and they spent an extremely enjoyable afternoon together taking apart a U bend. Then, a week before Christmas, the three of them received a late night phone call. A couple of hours later, Ben, Mom, and Dad were gathered around Granny's bed. She was in a hospice, which is where people go when the hospital can't treat them anymore. She didn't have long left to live, hours maybe. The nurses said she could go any time. Ben was sitting anxiously by Granny's bed. Even though she had her eyes closed and didn't seem able to speak, sitting in that room with her was an incredibly intense experience. Dad paced up and down at the foot of the bed, unsure what to do or say. Mom sat looking on, feeling helpless. Ben simply held Granny's hand. He didn't want her to slip away into the darkness alone. They listened to her raspy breathing. It was a horrible sound, but there was only one sound that was worse: silence. That would mean she was gone. Then, to everyone's surprise, Granny blinked and opened her eyes. She smiled when she saw the three of them. I'm famished, she said in a weak voice. She reached under her sheets and took out something wrapped in cling film, which she started unpeeling. What's that? Asked Ben. It's just a slice of cabbage cake, wheezed Granny. Honestly, the food here is ghastly. A little later, Mom and Dad went out to get a coffee from the vending machine. Ben didn't want to leave Granny's side for 1 second. He reached out and took her hand. It was dry and so light. Slowly, Granny turned to look at him. She was running out of time. Ben could see that. She winked. You'll always be my little Benny, she whispered. Ben thought how he used to hate that name. Now he loved it. I know, he said with a smile, and you'll always be my gangster Granny. Later, after Granny had finally gone, Ben sat quietly in the back seat of his mom and dad's car as they drove home from the hospice. They were all tired from crying. Meanwhile, loads of people were out Christmas shopping. The roads were full of cars, and there was a long queue outside the cinema. Ben couldn't believe life was going on as normal when something so momentous had just happened. The car turned a corner and approached the little padre of shops. Can I pop into the news agent, please? Said Ben. I won't be long. Dad parked the car, and a light snow was falling. Ben made his way alone into Roger's shop. Ding! Went the bell as the door opened. Ah, young Ben, exclaimed Raj. The news agent seemed to notice the sad look on Ben's face. Is something the matter? Yes, Raj, sputtered Ben. My granny's just died. Somehow saying that made him start crying again. Raj rushed out from behind the counter and gave Ben a big hug. Oh, Ben, I'm so sorry. I hadn't seen her for a while, and I guess she wasn't well. No, and I just wanted to say, Raj, said Ben between sniffs. Thank you so much for telling me off that time. You were right. She wasn't born at all. She was amazing. I wasn't telling you off, young man. I just thought you had probably never taken the time to get to know your granny. You were right. There was so much more to her than I ever imagined. Ben wiped the tears away with his sleeve. Raj began searching the shop. Now, I have a packet of tissue somewhere. Where are they? Oh, yes, just underneath the football stickers. Here you go. The news agent opened the packet and passed them to Ben. The boy wiped his eyes. Thank you, Raj. Is it 10 packets of tissue for the price of 9? He said with a smile. No, 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 chuckled Raj. 15 packets for the price of 14? Raj put his hand on Ben's shoulder. You don't understand, he said. They are on the house. Ben stared. In all the history of the world, Raj had never been known to give anything away for free. It was unheard of. It was madness. It was. It was going to make Ben cry if he wasn't careful. Thank you so much, Raj, he said, quickly choking up a little. I'd better get back to my parents. They are waiting outside. Yes, yes, but just one moment, said Raj. I have a Christmas present some here for you. Ben. He started rummaging around his cluttered little shop again. Now where is it? Ben's eyes lit up. He loved presents. Yes, yes, it's right here behind the Easter eggs. Found it, exclaimed Raj as he produced a bag of Murray's mints. Ben was a tiny bit disappointed, but he did his best to hide it. Wow, thank you, Raj, said Ben, doing his best school play acting. A whole packet of Murray mints? No, just one mint, said Raj, opening the bag and taking a single Murray mint out before handing it to Ben. They were your granny's absolute favorite. I know, said Ben with a smile. Chapter 34, Zimmer Frame. The funeral was on Christmas Eve. Ben had never been to a funeral before. He thought it was bizarre. As the coffin lay out at the front of the church, the mourners mumbled their way through the unfamiliar hymns, and a vicar who had never met Granny made a tedious speech about her. It wasn't the vicar's fault, but he could have been waffling on about any old lady who had just died. He went on in a dreary monotone about how she liked visiting old churches and was always kind to animals. Ben wanted to shout out. He wanted to tell everyone, his mom and dad, his uncles and aunts, everyone there about what an incredible granny she was, how she told the most amazing stories. And most of all, he wanted to tell them about the marvelous adventure he had shared with her, how they had nearly stolen the crown jewels and met the queen. But no one would have believed him. He was only 11. They would assume he had made the whole thing up. When they arrived home, most of the people who were at the church descended on the house. They drank cup after cup of tea and ate plate after plate of sandwiches and sausage rolls. It seemed weird having the Christmas decorations up at such a sad time. At first, people chatted about Granny, but soon they were gossiping about other things. Ben sat alone on the sofa and listened to the adults talking. Granny had left him all her books, and they were now cluttering up his bedroom in great piles. He was tempted to hide away in his room with them. After a while, a kindly-looking old lady moved slowly across the room with her Zimmer frame and eased herself down next to him on the sofa. You must be Ben. You don't remember me, do you? Said the old lady. Ben looked at her for a moment. She was right. Last time I saw you was your first birthday, she said. No wonder I don't remember, thought Ben. I'm Granny's cousin Edna, she said. Me and your granny used to play together as girls when we were just about your age. I had a fall a few years ago and couldn't cope on my own, so I was put into an old folks' home. Your granny was the only person who would come and visit. Really? He didn't think she ever went out. I didn't think she ever went out, said Ben. Well, she came to see me once a month. It wasn't easy for her. She had to get 4 different buses, and I was extremely grateful. She was a very special lady. She was indeed incredibly kind and thoughtful. I don't have any children or grandchildren of my own, you see, so me and your granny would sit on the lounge of the old folks' home and play Scrabble for hours together. Scrabble, said Ben. Yes, she told me how much you liked playing it too, said Edna. Ben couldn't help but smile. Yes, I loved it, said Ben. And to his surprise, he realized she wasn't lying. And to his surprise, he realized he wasn't lying. Looking back, he had loved it. Now his granny was gone. Every moment he had spent with her seemed precious, more precious even than the crown jewels. She never stopped talking about you, said Edna. Your dear old granny said you were the light of her life. She says she could really look forward to you coming to stay on a Friday. It was the best part of her week. It was the best part of my week, too, said Ben. Well, if you like Scrabble, you must pop over to the old folks' home one day for a game, said Edna. I need a new partner now. Your granny's gone. That would be great, said Ben. Later that evening, as his parents watched the Strictly Stars Dancing Christmas special, Ben climbed out of his bedroom window and slid down the drain pipe. Without making a sound, he took his bike out of the garage and cycled to Granny's house one last time. Snow was falling. It crunched under the wheels of his bike. Ben watched it come down, landing softly on the ground, barely paying attention to his route. He knew the journey off by heart now. He had cycled to the old lady's house so many times over the last few months, he knew every bump and crack in the road. He stopped his bike outside Granny's little bungalow. There was a scattering of snow on the roof. Post was piled up outside. The lights were all off, and there was a for sale sign with icicles hanging off it standing outside. Even so, Ben was half expecting to see Granny at the window, looking at him with hope, with that hopeful little smile of hers. But of course, she wasn't there. She was gone forever, but she wasn't gone from his heart. Ben wiped away a tear, took a deep breath, and cycled home. He sure had an amazing story to tell his grandchildren one day. And there is one last chapter, and that will be finished up tomorrow.